I personally think the best pitch in baseball is a high fastball because you work everything. If you throw 95 plus, you work everything off of that high fastball because it's just very difficult to catch up. And then it just gives you. I think you were there. He said, "No, it's not. It's really not." I was like, "Okay, that's a different perspective."
Right.
And again, I'll keep him because I want to touch base on
your hands are theoretically closer to the high fastball than they are to the lower fastball when you start. I think a lot of hitters will say it. So but it takes a philosophical adjustment. And then the BP fastballs that you're seeing is a low down running sinker.
Yeah.
So it's like, but what you see in the game is going to be a fucking hard four seamer up. And the coach throwing you BP that's why I think you've seen a shift to a lot more machine simulation to try to catch it. But we're in this cat and mouse game and the pitchers are the big mouse, in my opinion, right now. That's why the guys who can really hit are so impressive. Like Zach bursting onto the scene like he did offensively and to him, no, it's not. It's not that hard to get to a high fastball, but it is.
Yeah. So I wanted to tell you because that's obviously our mentality with these kids is getting them to understand, hey, your money, your bread and butter is out in front, right? Get that barrel out in front. You're going to be successful. Understand how to do that. However you climb the scales. That's going to be your key.
Right.
So I think the most difficult part that we have with them and getting them to understand that and getting them to really make that part of their main approach is strike zone awareness, right?
For sure.
You're going to
swing
get
decisions.
Exactly. So you're going to get pitches, 8 inches off the plate, sometimes called a strike. So it's a very difficult, how would you call it? Like a very difficult task as us as teachers to try to get them to stick to that approach because then they're going to be like, man, how?
Batting average, you could hit 3 flares and get the same amount of credit as 3 home runs. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. No, right? There's a gap in the value of those 3 things. What I like, and this is where today's day and age with the exit velocities and stuff, that you can do process-based things where you can hit 3 rockets to the center fielder and you get rewarded by your team in terms of what you did that night, process-wise, much more than if you flared the ball 3 times because they know one model is more sustainable than the other, even though you get 1,000 for one day and you get a 0 for the other day. I'd rather the day I had 3 rockets if I'm looking at this thing over the scope of 162. Yeah. So that's where I feel like average tells you something. It says something good is going on here. You are converting balls into non-outs, which is the most important thing. But a base on ball that creates traffic or that sets you up for the next at bat, and now you're on base creating traffic, creating runs.
Again, that's
equal
the key.
Wins above.
Runs equals wins, right?
That equal above replacement player. Like you circling it back to WAR. WAR is really a way of synthesizing total contribution to a game in one palatable number.
Welcome to the Sweet Spot Podcast, where we're all about helping players, coaches, and parents get the most out of the game. Whether you're stepping up to the plate, coaching from the dugout, or cheering from the stands, we got you covered with expert tips, strategies, and insights to make youth sports a better experience for everyone. Each episode, we'll share our own experiences and bring on special guests who will offer valuable advice on skill development, teamwork, and creating a positive environment for growth both on and off the field. So let's dive in and make the game even sweeter.
Play ball.
Sticking with fantasy from a baseball scouting analytics perspective, just your own eyes, right? Like if you give me the time to be able to watch every single player and what they're doing at the plate over a couple of days, I promise you that I will have the best lineup out there. All right.
Right. There seems like there's more going on here that I'm privy to.
Well, I wanted to bring the conversation back a little bit because we were talking about hitting and pitching and how much pitching has evolved and how much the hitting is trying to catch up to the pitching. I think that from a physical standpoint, we used to be down here with the physical attributes or the physical development. So in the 60s and 70s, when guys in the offseason had regular jobs and all of these things, some guys were plumbers in the 20s and 30s. You get me? And now we have specialized every single body part to strengthen the shoulders, the back, and all of these things. But at the end of the day, it's humans playing against humans, and we have limited. Well, our abilities are not endless. Our abilities are capped. And when you start talking about the average fastball velocity has gone from 90 to what is it now? 93?
Yeah, it's 94 actually.
94?
Yeah, for right-handed pitchers, 94.
94 miles an hour. So
93.8 or something like that.
So in a very short amount of time, pitchers have gone from 90 to 94, but the human body hasn't evolved.
Yeah, we're reaching the ceilings of the human body, ligament-wise, and
not just ligament. Our nervous system, our ability to recognize a pitch thrown from 60 feet 6 inches.
Right.
That is now, every once in a while, you would get a 94 miles an hour fastball or a 98 mile per hour fastball. The really elite hitters, I remember Pujols being able to sit on one and put it 430 feet into left center. But now that more guys, the vast majority of guys, are throwing 96, 97, 98. Sandy's changeup is what? 91? Mm-hmm. So it's going to come to a point where the physical attributes have been developed, but our nervous system is still exactly the same. So there's going to come a point in time in this game that is unlike any other major sport where the hitters are just going to have to be either sitting on pitches or the scouting is going to have to be insane. There has to be something to give some type of edge back to the hitter.
Well, I read the other day that the human body could throw up to 118 miles an hour.
Yeah.
That
but
is
the human body, I promise you, cannot barrel up 118 miles per hour.
Understandable. But that's what I'm saying.
I actually disagree with that. I think hitters will time it up.
I think
because you get into these postseason moments where everything's on the line, and sometimes it feels like the hitters can complete control. It's not the pitcher with the major advantage. I get what you're saying though. We're reaching our thresholds of what we can process, but also the iron versus iron that's happening at the high school and college levels right now too, is that's you're not just only seeing that at the big league levels now. The average high school fastball velocity, the average high school stuff, all that's up too, commensurate with the way it's up here. So it's a little more of a progression into this adjusting to high velocity age. But what's going to stop us from that is what's stopping us now is we're reaching the limits of the UCL, of the shoulder capsule, of the rotator cuff. We're reaching the limits of what these things can do in terms of how much can they tolerate if you're not perfectly prepared after doing a 2-hour routine like Paul Skeens does to then throw 99 to 101. Some guys throw 99 to 101 with 10% of that routine, right?
But how long can they do
that? We're seeing injuries at the highest levels we've ever seen them.
But that's the thing. But that's the thing now, right? I think baseball becomes a gladiator sport where, guys, you're talking about guys in DR, you're talking about guys that are in high poverty places. I mean, even if they throw 105 for, let's say 5 years, they're changing their lives, the lives of their parents, their grandparents, and the generations to come.
If they can throw strikes, for sure.
If they could do that, you will continue to see people that will continue to try to exceed those limits
for sure
and get to wherever it's going to get to, even if they're going to blow it out in X amount of time, because it just gives them that opportunity. And I just think it doesn't stop, right?
There's a kid. The Dominican Summer League just started. Last opening day was a couple days ago. And I watched one of the Marlins kids. His name is Kevin DeFrank. And Kevin DeFrank had 3 strikeouts. He threw 2 innings. He had 3 strikeouts. All 3 strikeouts were 99 mile an hour fastball, 98.5 mile an hour fastball, 99 mile an hour fastball. He's 16 years old. So that means he was pitching at 99, not touching it. He was pitching at 99 as a 16-year-old, really super strong kid. So
Josh Beckett numbers.
Yeah, but we're seeing these earlier and
Josh
earlier
Beckett
and earlier.
in his 20s, that's a different body.
Right. But we're pitching them. We're actually pitching
Josh
them.
Beckett at 17, 18 was throwing 100 miles an hour.
Right.
It's Strasburg.
But the actual professional teams are controlling the volume at which they're doing that. I'd say a lot better than the amateur level stuff is doing it. So the problems I see coming is when you apply, throw it as hard as you can, and then you're trying to win whatever 12U baseball game. So you throw Wednesday, you throw Friday, you throw like, I actually think it's the amateur levels of baseball that put the kids more at risk than the professional ones do. And guys get hurt in pro ball all the time, but in pro ball, I feel like because of potential lawsuits and things that have to be done correctly, you can't just like run a guy out there 130 pitches every day. Those things, usually most pro players have stories about in high school or in travel ball or in summer ball or whatever, where they like just
no pitch count,
just go win this game, whatever. And I think those start to tear at injuries more than I think what's happening in pro ball, because pro ball is just a little more controlled.
And pro ball, once your body, maximizes to its full potential, those guys are throwing every day. Like there's no doubt about it. Like they're not gonna take a day off. Like it's part of the routine, right? They're gonna throw
if you're good about it.
Yeah.
If you're good about it.
Exactly.
And while you're under the watch of a team, you're good about it. What do you do in the off season? Right? What do you do in the time where you're ramping up to like find that new pitch? And that's where I think the American guys have such a decided advantage. American guy can come over here, go to Bommarito, go to Pinecrest, go to Driveline, go to here, wherever, blah, blah, blah. And they're there every day. And they're like, when guys go back to Latin America and they don't have that same infrastructure, like stuff, it's not just Latin America, it could be, other places in this country, but here, like, they're everywhere, really. And like, what do you do in those off seasons? That's where a lot of guys don't realize how much money gets made in those off seasons. And then guys like shortchange the off season, then try to ramp it up full speed in spring training. You get hurt.
Yeah.
I see injuries skyrocket in spring training.
How do
who showed up prepared? Who's been stress testing? Who's been like
going back to war? How much value have you noticed, or how much value do organizations place into war when it comes to evaluating free agents, signing free agents? How they want to have their team structured, comparatively from when you were around the game and
Sure.
to now?
I think if you put war in descending order, for example, you would most likely find the best players stacked towards the top of those war numbers, because war is total contribution to the game. It doesn't just isolate offense. It doesn't, but offense as a part of war is probably appropriately. It's not like fielding and hitting are equal in value in the war model, or base running. Base running is a third kind of tertiary, like it's probably like 60, 40, 10 in terms of like where the value is stacked. So you could still be like, offense is still king even in the war model, but war is trying to capture total contributions in a game. That's why Bobby Witt is a war monster, because he's value on both sides. Fernando Tatis is a war monster because it's value on all sides. Like it's elite impact, elite offensive impact, elite defensive impact, and like base running impact as well. So like those guys stack the highest war, even though Aaron Judge would be the best player. And Aaron Judge stacks up value all over the place. So he's rare in that case too. Shohei Ohtani, base running value goes through, even though he's a DH, he's still stacked toward the top of that's just how ridiculous his bat is. But I think if all 30 GMs got together in a room and needed to speak the same language, they'd speak war.
Do you know which war?
That's what I would say.
Which war they use? Do they use Baseball Reference or Fangraphs?
It's minimal, the difference.
Yeah, I don't think that
sometimes it's a little. It could be. I mean, Fangraphs I think uses more of. Again, I could be wrong. I'm not an expert.
Right.
But I think they use more of like defensively. They'll use more of like the last X amount of time.
So it's more like a recency bias.
Yeah. So obviously, if you're coming up and you don't have the track record, you're going to be a lower WAR number than Baseball Reference, for example, which is, I guess, everybody kind of compiles into the same.
What I've seen happen recently, and we were actually talking about it downstairs, I've seen teams move more to a kind of surplus value driven metric. So like try to put a player's value or worth into a dollar figure, so that it's something that you can, this player carries $100 million in surplus value. That could mean, like Roman Anthony right now is the best prospect in baseball, right? But he's not making arbitration money. He won't be for another 4 years. So he doesn't have a salary number attached to him that you can but he also doesn't have major league time.
Yeah.
But like, what is he worth? What total value of 6 years of control of the top prospect in baseball? It's probably going to be very good.
Yeah.
He probably has a surplus value in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
That's a trade number.
And that's like, I think GMs have to speak in that language more, right? Yeah. So amongst the 30 teams, I would say some sort of surplus value, dollar-driven number, or a WAR number, right? Which is indicative of like total contributions to the game. And then I think scouts operate more in a what they call OFP model. Not all teams, but OFP basically like a tallying up of all your tools and skills, putting it on a 20 to 80 scale. So like an 80 player, like an 80 number would be the best elite scouting, top of the scale player. You know, a 70 player would be an all-star, a 60 player would be an above average player, a 50 player would be an average. So a 52 would be a slightly above average player like that. I think scouts can get on the same page on that front. But WAR is probably the safest to apply to everybody. Anybody can, I think, understand how much do you contribute to the win of a team, and wins are what we're trying to do. So that's
I think last year, from what I recall, I think free agents were making on average $8 million per WAR. So that's a number that you could kind of value.
Right. And teams have it valued to like down to every strike that we gain is worth X amount. Every win that we gain is worth X amount, but like down to the granular level of like, if you can get 3 outs in one major league game in the NL East, that's worth
X amount.
And you can deduce out from there.
Yeah. And I think it also becomes something that organizations do based on where they're playing, right? Like we talked about Fenway, Marlins Park, big park, right? So now you're quantifying more value to the pitching, or you're quantifying more value to a guy that is a righty, in Fenway, pull guy, Bregman, for example. Those are things that you want to set up as an organization that gives you the most amount of success. So, and that was something like, as an organization, you see a guy that fits, let's say Bregman, Fenway, agents. Do you think they kind of try to extract more value from the team, knowing, hey, this guy here of mine is going to be more successful hitting in your park than he is in Marlins Park, for example?
The park adjusted stuff, I put a certain amount of stock into, but only up to a limited point, because you still got to play 81 elsewhere, no matter what. So you got to play half the season elsewhere as well. And elsewhere is not one controlled place. It's 29 other controlled places. Yeah. So like you still have to be like a road warrior here too. So you can't just build for that. You can build for some inherent advantages, but I think that would box you in too many situations. Like, are you not going to acquire a good poolside hitter to right field because you play in Fenway Park? Probably not. And you could be wrong about your assessment. Like, what if you're the Marlins, you're only going to get guys that put the ball on the ground because it's so big? And like, no, dude, if you're not getting guys hitting at you, like, teams can try to build around that. You're not going to
win anyways.
The Rockies have their own unique argument because the things just happen weird at Coors. Like, it's just a different, weirder baseball. But for the most part, I think you can go park adjusted up to a limited point. You definitely need to go park adjusted in certain places where, like in Coors, I remember I always wanted to acquire Carlos Gonzalez with the Rockies, and he was like free agent years. I love that swing. I thought he could work, but I remember a guy.
There was a lot of rumors. There was a lot of rumors of him coming to the Marlins.
Yeah, that was all me trying to do it. But I would try to get it to happen, and there was a guy that he would just be like, "Hey, like, here's why this can't translate the same way. Here's why we can't trust the numbers coming out of Colorado in terms of translating here." So like in certain pockets, it's affected, but I would say probably only to like 20% that you can take that into consideration.
But that was in terms of hitting or pitching or
offensive, both. Pitches move differently in different climates and templates. There are guys that swear that the humidity level here makes it harder to hit here beyond just it's a big park. And I forget, Adam Duvall was convinced that this mound here was like 6 inches higher than normal because the ball just played different based on wherever we are. We went through this process of getting a humidor for the baseballs, putting them in the humidor. How much would that affect, like neutralize, to try to create more offense here, really? How much would that make the ball travel truer? And I felt like it got us nowhere because it's still unpredictable. So you have to build against park adjusted stuff is what I'm saying. I don't think you can rely on it as like, well, this guy does this, therefore he's going to be good here. Bregman is well positioned to do well there because of like the short porch and Houston and all that. So there's some places where that overlaps, but for the most part, you got to be built to hit anywhere.
Let me ask him something really quick because the cargo thing piqued my interest. Why wouldn't a hitter like Carlos Gonzalez, how would that not translate to to the Marlins?
It could, just not at the level that you would expect it to. So like if he's hitting 30 home runs and slugging 600 in Coors,
here it would be
less.
Different.
And how much can they afford of a less? Right? Like where is that?
Where are you buying them at
or what are you getting? If what you're using to evaluate what he's doing at Coors Park. So like when you have somebody with the Rockies, you park adjust heavily. You park adjust significantly. But sometimes guys are just good hitters anywhere, right? Like PCA, Pico Armstrong is not like, he's not good because he's playing in Wrigley. Like
that
he's
guy's
just
going to
good.
be another war monster.
Good. Yeah, he's a war monster. Yeah. Total contribution. I'm a
One,
big fan of complete players. It's probably what I want baseball to look like as a scout. You want as many like guys who do it on both sides.
Adrian, I wanted to ask you this now that you're talking about, we're talking about organizations. Marlins, for example, obviously, they're not in the position to sign 10-year deals.
Strap in.
Right? Like I'm just trying to, again, I try to analyze, teams, and I've been trying to analyze the Marlins for a while and what makes them, good as a fan, as a hometown guy. They're obviously not going to be signing big time contracts. You're not going to get 10-year guys. Is it something where it's a problem, like we discussed, the park being so big, whereas these guys that maybe are looking for a little bit from free agency in a shorter term, do you feel like they are reluctant to come here because they know that they may not put up the numbers that they want to then hit free agency again? Do you think that's something that's affecting the Marlins in a way?
I think it's affecting them to a certain extent. I think it's affecting them more that they're not a place to look at for a competitive financial offer, right? I think that certain guys, like it would be misguided, I think, to put all the logic there, right? Like why wouldn't Kyle Schwarber want to be here, for example, just to give a random example? Yeah. Like I don't think that I don't think I could put up numbers in such a big park would be such a concern at the highest of levels. Like I think more of a concern is that he doesn't want to be here, period, because that culture isn't established to be, a winning club moving forward. I don't think that's because of how big the park is. It's been moved in quite a few times. It's been adjusted. Yes, it's objectively true. Offense suffers here, but I think that's more like we don't have the credibility to entice the right kind of guys to seek this opportunity out. We, the Marlins, and I can say we because I spent we with the Red Sox were winning in 2018 in my first week with the Marlins. Like I sought the Marlins out as a place that I wanted to go, apply everything I had learned in Boston and see if I could help the hometown team. All at a point where the organization I was voluntarily leaving just to try to help this thing is winning the World Series. I was in my office, first week in my office in Marlins, and I'm watching on the TV the Red Sox winning the World Series, and I was like, this. I was happy because you're still part of it. You got a ring and all that, but so I bring that up because I've tried to figure out the Marlins thing as a profession from 2018 to 2023. That was my driving force, passion. My whole identity was tied up in how do the Marlins get better? How do we win games? We showed some flashes in the pan. We did some things right during that standpoint. But one thing that was definitely true is that we don't carry the reputation or the cachet amongst other players all over the league as a place that they want to go be a part of, want to go play for, despite being in this lovely city and weather that we're in. Miami's not for everybody. And Miami, unfortunately, in some ways, has a connotation of only being a certain thing. And so amongst baseball players, especially not the Latino ones or the ones that are from here. They see Miami as like this like salsa dancing city that they feel out of cultural touch with in a way. Like, oh, that's
Like
for people
Vegas.
from there. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. It's a good example. Vegas, but in Spanish.
Yeah.
You know, and it has that association with it. And some of it's true. Some of it's warranted. The Sunday hangovers for visiting teams because they went out on Saturday, that's real. So there's a component to that. But
And in basketball too, by the way.
for whatever.
Yeah, but he have the culture
Yeah,
that
Right.
you want.
So that's where it shifts, right? That's where like the Heat are a desired destination in the NBA. And I think that's because of a credibility across the organization, a continuity, like that organization has presence to it, right? And you can have presence a few ways. Takes you 15, 20 years of established continuity, or Inter Miami has presence right now with dollars.
How do you
Right?
how do you flip it to that? How do you flip the Marlins to what those guys are doing?
It's years of investment and ownership, and like they invest in that organization. Like if you stack to the Panthers up, where do they rank in payroll, for example? Are they at the bottom of the league at number 30? Because that's where the Marlins have been living for a while. Maybe 29 on a given year, but you're living at 30. And the gap between 19 and 30 is huge. The gap between 10 and 30 is massive. And the gap between the Dodgers and 30 is what you would imagine.
As far as I'm concerned, they brought in a very good GM, and they have been signing the good players to long-term contracts, and they have been keeping the talent here.
They
Right.
built
We
the
do
culture.
not, as Marlins, and I mean, it bothers me to say, but we've never had that mentality. We've never had that culture of, I'm going to keep the best guys here no matter what.
I think I'd pause to say never, right? Because you signing Giancarlo Stanton to a 13-year, $325 million deal as the best player, and this is before my time with the Marlins, but I'm just giving you an example. Like whether or not the timing of those things when you did them made the most sense when you made them, right? Like that's another argument, right? But you are right. For whatever reason, it feels like we can't get it going in a sustainable way to keep the things that are valuable. Like, I don't think it's a lack of a good GM, for example. I've worked for some exceptional GMs as a member of the Marlins, but I've also realized that like a GM or even like a figure like Derek Jeter, for example, like
He's limited.
well, you can't unilaterally just like get better overnight as the 30th payroll in baseball. And you say, well, the Rays do it. I was like, okay, you want to get the Rays? You want to make that argument? Look 20 years ago and when they started all these processes, when they initiated all these things, how much cohesion they've had and uniformness behind. Like the Rays are a bit of a machine. But I actually I don't like that model. I don't think a major league franchise should be run as like a kind of profit maximization, lowest possible spend to get the highest possible outcome. That's really more of like a former Oakland A's Billy Beane model.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think American sports is more like big dog than that. Like why am I trying to do this on a budget? Why do I need to think about this on a budget?
Especially in a sport
And
that's,
Dodgers, Mets,
that doesn't
Red
have a
Sox,
salary cap.
Dodgers, Mets, Red Sox, even down to like Diamondbacks. All these these things are all money
And correct
generating
me
entities.
if I'm wrong, but Stanton's salary contract, wasn't it backloaded? Weren't the first few
Yeah,
years?
listen.
Yeah, but
the
not-
L'Oreal
So I think
situation, that
I
was
think
all,
that was signed. I
No,
think
that was
done
all-
with
L'Oreal
the purpose
knew
of
he-
eventually getting
Listen,
trading him.
I don't
Jose-
think so. I think you build it with giving yourself the flexibility if you needed to, but I don't think they signed that deal thinking he was going to be playing for somebody and somebody else would be paying.
But
his salary.
I really think, Adrian, that L'Oreal knew he was going to sell. Unfortunate with Jose, everything that happened. I think that was a big setback in the organization for sure. Whether traded him or whatever, they would have, if it led to that, I don't know exactly. But I do think that L'Oreal did know in 2012 that he was going to sell when that time came.
That's funny because the information that I would work off of says a lot different, right? Because like while that is the outward narrative, I feel like if Jose hadn't passed away,
I
like
think that
he
core
was
would have
holding on.
stayed?
Yeah, there's an emotional holding on to this entity, and there's like a cachet to owning a major league franchise in the circles that you run in when you're a billionaire. Like that's like it's not just, there's an emotional connection to having it. And everything that I've witnessed makes me feel like that was like the thing to be like, okay, this isn't fun anymore. Like this is just kind of like deflated everything. And the stadium deal was always this like grading thing to, you made like you made this deal and you made this investment and this thing that like couldn't really work where you put it. And so I think what ultimately sinks this franchise, but makes it hard to get out of this hole is literally, despite having a beautiful stadium, is where you put it. It doesn't function like 99% of other stadiums where you can generate revenue by what you build around it. You go there and it's like this, and this feels different.
That's it. Yeah.
You know, obviously I've been to Fenway, I've been to Wrigley, I've been to even the Atlanta one that's new. Like
Truest, yeah, that's a
it's
beautiful
a whole
setup
thing
outside.
happening.
Yeah.
You know, you go like, and that brings revenue. So when you're not getting revenue, what are you going to spend at the highest level when your revenue is also low? But that's where revenue sharing comes into play. That's where I contest. Like if, excuse me, if the revenue sharing number that teams get, revenue sharing, there's a list of teams at the top that basically pay for the bottom third teams to operate. So the bottom third teams receive an injection of revenue every year to start the year. That number, this is like a Scott Boras argument, that number has to be in the $110 to $120 million per year.
So
that
why
you
are
as a
you
team
not,
start.
Of course. So why are you not?
How do you square that with a $38 million payroll?
Not counting the revenue that you generate on your own.
Correct.
Right.
Excuse me. But right. So that's
there is part of the revenue that you generate goes back to the pool that gets spread between.
Right, but it's not the full amount.
But if you're
It's a
starting
percent.
100 and just 8 years ago, it was like 80 million. So I'm guesstimating on what inflation and what it could be right now. But TV deals are up, like baseball popularity is through the roof, WBC, blah, blah, blah. Like it's up. It's up big. Again, this is what Scott Boras is arguing, that like you think that Juan Soto signing this deal is like, this has all gone to shit because like, you know, now players get all the lion's share of this. Like if they're willing to pay that, what do you think they're making? Right? Like, what do you think they're making? Still,
Why don't
like,
you think they open the books?
why don't I think they open the books? Because
But
it's going to tell like
It's
predictably
exactly.
like
It's gonna explain what we've feared as fans to an extent,
Right.
that you know the money is just not being used wisely to make the
Right.
team better.
and there's always a legitimate argument for that. I think where we get trampled up here, at least with the Marlins group, is this new era of like 18, 20 plus person ownership groups. That's all like a division of minority stakes. So even though like one person will have the lion's share and they have the majority, it's divvied across like, you know, and so and if those people don't live in the community, there's like a separation of like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this as an investment. Why would I like cash call you all the time just to like, so there's a separation of, that's why I think these teams need to be run almost like emotionally by trusts, like as a public trust. Like you're holding this thing for a community, not as like a business that you're trying to maximize profit out of. Yeah. You know,
I mean,
and
some organizations are ran that way.
Some organizations are ran
Blue
that way,
Jays.
but that's a massive corporation, like the Rogers company.
Rogers.
That's like, it's a massive corporation that has like legitimate revenue. You know, when it's these fractured ownership groups, that's not like one company. That's why sometimes it's better for the Lerner family or this family to own it, because they can like emotionally do things. And even with Loria, you can emotionally unilaterally do something. When in a bigger group, it's harder. It's harder. And that's why I think
The board.
that's why I
gets
think
bigger.
they're stuck in this cycle, because they're still trying to run it like at a low payroll with high outcome in a major city. Like Miami is not, I don't know, you think of the United States of America right now and cities
not
who
Tampa
possess
Bay.
wealth. It's not like you say New York, you say LA, and you say Miami right now. You say Vegas, you say Chicago. You group it in to the major markets. The Heat don't operate like if there's some like budget franchise. And the Panthers don't operate like there's some budget franchise. The Dolphins certainly don't the University of Miami football program certainly doesn't operate like there's some poor program.
And you would figure that having Latin America and the Caribbean, a 1 hour and a half, 2 hour flight away, that you would be able to bring in that type of.
Well, you bring it for the WBC. So
it's here.
So it's here.
Correct.
Yeah.
It shows.
But this is what happens when you build resentment over a long period of time, where you compound decades of resentment and you sprinkle in a couple. You see you sprinkling in a couple championships. Will bare minimum save you, because we all associate with those. But that's not what, like, most Marlins fans are like scorned exes. You know, that they're not only like, and I'm pissed at you. I'm not gonna go, and I'm pissed at you.
Yeah.
You know,
and
don't call
me don't try to get my trust back.
Right.
Well, there was a time that I would.
But you want them to.
Yeah.
Because now you have kids, and now you're like, so it's like, yo, like,
but
come on. Trust me, I lived in that come on for a long time before I just couldn't come on anymore.
And let me ask you something. Having that you were there, from the perspective of player development.
Yeah.
I have seen so many franchises go through different ownerships, go through different GMs that still have the ability to develop their players. The Astros come to mind. Where is the gap when it comes to the Marlins and developing the guys that they draft?
I think the Marlins have been developing a lot for a long time. It's just like whether or not you retain them, right? And I think that, so I'll give you an example. Like we're talking about Sandy Alcantara, Yuri Perez, Pablo Lopez, that's Luzardo. You're going down these lines of like, it's just been steered in the pitching direction lately, but you flip it to that era just before, right?
But those are traded guys,
Stanton.
though.
Okay, but you're asking about development, though.
Yeah.
You're asking about the ability to develop. So that's real. You put that list, I see it in tweets all the time. Imagine all these guys that have passed through the Marlins' hands that are now playing elsewhere. That's not a development issue necessarily. I'm not saying there's been perfection in development. I think the inability to develop offensive players, real bats, like a core of young position players, that was probably the biggest shortcoming during my time with the Marlins. Just an inability to do that for whatever reason, despite every effort to do it. It just didn't break that way. What ended up happening, you developed an elite stable of pitching, right? Ones that, I mean, I remember the way teams went after these players, not only the pitchers, but I watched the Phillies go after Realmuto hard. I watched the Brewers go after Yelich hard. The Yankees take on Stanton. It's not like Jazz goes to the Yankees and goes to the World Series. It's not like these players... Miguel Rojas is sitting winning world championships for the Dodgers. This I can go down this thing for Kike Hernandez. Blah, 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 blah. We can go down this for a while here. It's just a matter of with the Marlins, it's like, can you defy every odd just to flash in the pan? And then like it crumbles after that because you made all your efforts just to get there in 2023 and 2020 when we made postseason runs, right? Like, but then right after, the bottom comes out because the injection of what needs to happen after with big financial injection doesn't hold up. It doesn't it's not that it doesn't hold up. I'm not asking to be in the top 10. Put me in the top 20 at least, bro. Let me not be number 30 every year.
And I feel like
we're not a poor city.
No, we're not. We're not. Let me ask you this now that we're talking about
the opposite.
That draft wise, right? Is there a limitation draft capital, signing bonus wise, where they would maybe shy away from maybe a better player just because they know this guy has this number in mind and I don't want to meet it? Is that no. Something
that doesn't feel like in the draft sense or in the international sense, because you have pools total. So the Marlins are still spending, if they get assigned a $12 million pool, they're going to be spending a $12 million pool. And actually in the draft rooms that I was a part of, you would there was like this extra, you get taxed on the overages. So Marlins would go over their budget on almost every draft class just because there were benefits to getting better players to do so. So in the draft, it doesn't show up like that in the draft because you pay the guy either what he's worth. You can go under slot, but that doesn't mean you're spending less of your overall pool. That just means
you can
if I go
allot that to a different spot.
Allocate that to a player down the road that maybe.
Pero te digo, it maybe let's say for example you have number 10 pick, and you have a guy that is going to be maybe a game changer in the first round. but you talk to his agent and that guy's asking for X amount of money, and that's over slot, that's over the budget that you're thinking about. Would they, as an organization, think of, okay, let's move on from that guy because we're not, we're going to have to overpay for that guy, even though we really want him and it's going to make our organization better. Let's now draft this guy because the slot value is where we're wanting to be.
Theoretically, I guess that could happen, but it's also dependent on like how much better is the next guy available or how much worse is the next guy available that you can get at the number you want to get. So yeah, maybe you don't draft the best player because you want to try to get 2 players. I call that trying to get cute. You have a player you want, get him. Get his ass. Like, I remember we were in the draft room with the Marlins talking about how, like Bobby Witt, we're basically willing to give him the whole pool and like kind of not punt the rest of the draft, but like we had such conviction that we wanted, and he went 1 selection ahead of us, right? Or 2 selections ahead of us, I think. But we were like trying to talk to them and be like, hey, the whole thing. That's how much we value this. So like, if that happens instead of not happening, like that would dispel that argument, right? So I don't think that that's true. I think that where it shows up most is free agency and infrastructure and headcount. Like when you start to spend on internal headcount, facilities, and major league free agency dollars is where like it's not being invested in at the appropriate levels. And when they have done it, Avisail Garcia, which I would argue is an average expenditure for most teams, not like
a big landing.
Us making our big splash, right?
Whale.
Yeah, like that to me. So what? So what if like teams miss in that range all the time, but for the Marlins, it's disastrous. And it tells you like, oh no, we're never doing this again. Look how bad that went.
How about Nick
Wei
Castellanos?
Chen. Yeah, but Nick Castellanos has to want to come here too.
He did.
That to me is where like the desire of a player to do something versus an agent actually like feeling out a market. Like those two things are completely different. I being in that room, even if he says it, it never felt on the other end like that was any sort of real. And what felt the realist was that the Marlins can stand there as a leverage point to get what you really need out of that other team. Like it never felt like that was, I'm sure there's a hometown connection, a hometown like pull, but you just put the Phillies organization and the Marlins organization next to each other. One can offer you the premium dollars and one has that cachet. It has that reputation as a place that guys want to go play for. That's not like the hometown stuff has to carry all the value there in the other equation. And I could be wrong, but I don't think it did. And I don't think I'm wrong.
Adrian, we want to bring you back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
You guys get me going on this. I
think we
go,
got,
so.
out of,
No.
I don't even know how long we've been here.
Oh,
Junior does.
Yeah.
2?
Sheesh.
Wow. I could go on for 2 more if you guys want. Junior
You want to take a paterito break?
Oh, man. Oh, shoot. I haven't even picked up my kids.
No, it's an honor to be here with you guys. I'm a big supporter, and I celebrate what you guys are doing. And I'm like I love talking baseball. Even though I say I'm out and I'm an artist now, I still find a way to talk about baseball all the time, and this is a fun way to do it. So
Absolutely.
keep going, man. Keep going.
Absolutely, man. It was a pleasure. We definitely got to do it again because
there's
a lot more.
Yeah.
There's a lot more there, and it's always a pleasure talking to you.
That's why I created a whole other show with our Big League show.
Yeah.
Because there's just enough to kind of keep going on. But I'm a big supporter of what you guys are doing, man.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it, man. All the best, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, man.
All right. Take care, guys.